Hi everybody, this is Katie. Welcome to episode 2 of Enchanted Emerald Isle. Today I'm working on the area around my Abel sisters, and we are doing the first decorating episode for this season. You can see Sparrow watching that butterfly. So cute. I always get distracted by the cuteness of the villagers. So right here behind the shop, you can see there's this big long stretch of land between the ocean and the river. And there's also a little beach back there, and then a little bit of a longer beach here right next to the shop. And then of course we have the area right in front and to the side of the shop. These are some really odd shaped spaces, and I thought that this might be a really good opportunity to talk about how we decorate when we're dealing with really little or odd or transitional spaces. I get this question a lot where people have little bits of space and they ask, well, what do I do with it? And so today, not only are we going to work in this space, but you'll see that once we get started, a great deal of this space is taken up with the path that I put together. And a lot of what we're going to do is fill it in with very basic pathing and nature, and we're not going to overburden the area. I really want this island to be more of a country core island and not a cottage core island. And the biggest difference to me, the style and the items used are similar. The kind of quaint, old world, slow lifestyle is the same, but the big difference with cottagecore is that the items tend to be extremely cluttered and very close together. And that can be fun because there's so much to look at. But what I really want to create here is more country core, where things aren't too tight. And a lot of what we have is going to be open space. And so when someone says, well, I've got this odd space, what do I do with it? You'll see how little is actually done to bring this area together. I hope that makes sense. It's a complicated concept to try and explain out loud, but I still feel like today's will help. You'll see what I mean once we get going. Sometimes the answer is trees. We just need to plant some trees. So I've decided to go ahead and take up the bushes that were right here behind the nooks because I want to put a fence down first. And it's always good from the perspective of wherever a character might be walking. I prefer to have higher things in back. And since the people would likely be walking in front of the Abel sisters shop, I thought the fence should go closest to nooks. So that was the reasoning for making that little bit of a transition. And then you'll also see I moved the log stakes entirely. I was trying to put them around the plant area with the flowers, and they just didn't line up. It was just too messy. And so I decided to move them down here instead and just put together a little bit of a barrier between the water and the land, because mostly there's not enough room to do anything on the beach during that little bitty thin spot. Over here, I'm taking the same pattern, and I know it's a dirt green pattern, but I'm putting it down on the beach, which helps tie the different areas together. And I decided I needed to go ahead and put some flowers in place before I could really see the rest of how the area was working out. So I went ahead and grabbed those flowers and came back to finish working on the path. Again, a lot of the area is being filled up with a path, but when you're working on these 9 space pattern paths the way that I am, it's really important that they not be too uniform. You want them to have a little bit of variety and to weave in and out. The look is supposed to kind of pretend to be as if it's just where the dirt has naturally worn down because everybody is walking on it. So sometimes the path is straight, but for the most part, it looks better if it meanders a little bit. And I also like that means there are more clovers on the ground, which is the main decorating thing I'm using on this island. I am not really using a ton of custom patterns outside of this set that I created, because a lot of what I'll be doing is filling the island up with that clover pattern in as many places as I can get away with. You'll notice I'm taking that clover pattern and setting it down pretty much everywhere that there isn't either something that I need to plant or that the path isn't already in place. And if you've watched any of my previous designer series builds, you'll know that I do have a preference for filling every single spot on my island. And a lot of that, even if I use just a invisible transparent pattern, and a lot of that is because it allows me to control what is spawning where, especially in regards to things like weeds or fossils. This way, when I'm ready, I can also put rock gardens together very easily. So it's a normal par for the course for me, but it's also decorational. In this particular way, I'm using that clover to almost recolor the grass to be a really very St. Patrick's themed grass that we're using with that clover and just a little bit of the extra green pattern all over. I put the loom in place here behind the Abel sisters, and then I'm just making room. You'll see I just dug a spot. That's my way of saying, oh, here I'm going to put a tree. And my brain can kind of fill in the space that tree will occupy. But if that's hard for you to imagine, you can always go and put that tree in place. I find it's easier to see what I'm doing if I wait and put big trees in later. But everyone works in different ways, so definitely do what you feel comfortable with. Here I'm putting more of that pattern down. There's probably going to be a lot of times in future episodes where I just skip through this step, because if we have a lot of path to put down, the process is essentially the same. It repeats over and over. But you'll see here, I just put down the different corners real fast, and then I put down the straight lines and then started filling it in place. You have to just work and nudge and baby this type of pattern along a little bit until you feel happy with it. The nice part is you can kick it up and change it, so it's really easy to do. I'm putting down a little bit of a laundry area behind the Abel sisters. I like the elements that we have in the game for that, the wash tub and the clothesline. And they're easy DIYs to get early on in the game process, so I already have them available. I feel like it goes with the Abel sisters because they would probably need to do more clothes laundering. I don't know, maybe it's a stretch, but it sure looks beautiful. It's a funny thing about laundry in games like this. Laundry always looks a lot more beautiful and romantic than it actually is to do in real life. Either way, that's what I've decided to do behind here. So a little bit of pathing, a tiny little nook back here with room to put down a clothesline and laundry area, and then trees and clover and plants. The beach areas are also treated very simplistically. I just have a hammock that I put down on this side here with room for a couple of palm trees on the side. And then I just put a bench on the other one. So the beach doesn't have to be overly full to be well decorated, in my opinion. The last step then, I went and picked up some more flowers and trees and back to just drop in more of that greenery. And I am mixing the evergreen trees, those pine trees, with the regular hardwood trees back and forth on this island. And while palm trees aren't natural to a little bit of an Irish countryside style environment, I am using a fantastical version of that here in the game, and it is an island after all. So those are the 3 trees that I'm using, and I have a ton of green mums that I am putting everywhere. Let's take a quick tour through and see how it came out. You'll see a very simple little walk area here in front of the shop, down onto the beach with a bench where you can sit and look out at the water, and then a few little flowers in there right next to the shop with another area. Seating areas are always a good way to fill space. The loom back here behind the shop with the water pump, and then a really quaint little place to sit and do laundry. A hammock down on the beach just to enjoy some of that brisk ocean air. And the path and the clover that kind of spans all of its way through the area. I did go ahead and put trees and flowers down behind resident services as well, and the area is complete. I hope you guys found something useful here and that you continue creating in this game. Until next time, have the best Animal Crossing day.